Hello and welcome back to Pure Michigan Sports. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel, and it is time for all of the new sports news in the state of Michigan. As many of you know, we record this the night before, so we're also actively watching the Pistons try and mount a comeback here in Indiana against the Pacers. But
throwing bows.
throwing bows, man, we'll talk about the Stewart ejection in a minute. Anyone that's listening to this is probably doing it on Thursday, and so you've definitely seen the video by now. It looked pretty dirty, to be honest with you. It looked pretty bad, but we'll get to that in a minute.
He looked the dude square in the face and just lunged at him and threw his elbow at him. What are you
tough.
doing, dude?
And then it got upgraded to a flagrant 2. And Bryant went on to miss both free throws. And I want to say ball don't lie so bad, but it was clearly like a non-basketball play. It was clearly, yeah. We'll get to that, but we'll get to everything else state of Michigan sports related right here on Pure Michigan Sports. I want to say this is episode 37, and we've got a lot to talk about. We've got new coaches in Detroit this time for the Lions, and if you listened or watched last episode, it was not pretty seeing our reactions to the end of the Lions season. This, I think, gives a little bit of hope looking forward, and I saw mostly positive reactions to the two hirings of the offensive and defensive coordinators respectively.
Hold on, we gotta talk about what we were just talking about pre-show. So if you Google John Morton, the Lions' new OC, there's also a Johnny Morton. Johnny Morton was a wideout for the Lions in, I want to say, the 80s or 90s. Then we also just went out and got a completely different guy that also happens to go by also Johnny Morton.
They're trying to make this as clear and easy as possible for all Detroit media. And we were also talking about, like Alex said pregame, he also goes by Johnny Morton. Most people are calling him John to differentiate. But he, like, the original report from Adam Schefter calls him Johnny Morton. Like, we're gonna be confused at some point. This is gonna be like a highlight comeback from commercial 30-second story whenever we're on like NBC. You know what I'm talking about? Like Sunday Night Football, they come back. Here's Johnny Morton, and here's also Johnny Morton.
It's gonna be the new Stafford Kershaw, where it's like, did you know these guys went to high school together? You're going to piss me off.
Once per game. You have to mention it once per game. That's actually, it's funny you say that. That's a broadcaster's thing. People will say that is like, you got to give it like the Stafford Kershaw. You got to give it like the one mention per game. You have to. Like,
broadcasters know that pisses people off.
Maybe, but you almost have to say it. It's like an important thing.
Collinsworth knows that everybody hates that he just completely mounts Mahomes all the time.
But he leans into it.
Yeah, but he leads into it. He's like, I've seen everybody's tweets. I know exactly what you're saying. I don't care. I'd have the same attitude if I was him. Like, he can do whatever. Again, we're not here to talk about Chris Collinsworth. But the guy's, he was with the Lions. He was passing game coordinator. The last year we were dog shit.
You're talking about Johnny Morton?
Yeah, back to John Morton.
Yeah.
Passing coordinator in 2022. Then goes to the Jets. I don't think the Jets offense has done anything notable in years.
No, but he was with the Broncos.
Oh, sorry. Yes, he was with the Broncos. That's correct. Even still, I mean, yeah, you have Bo Nix, and he definitely did well over there. But not too much of an insane resume other than that. I know he's with the Saints for a while. He's been with the Jets. He was the Jets OC for a year.
I think
so. We'll see. I mean, it seems like his role will be strictly pass game coordinator, and maybe someone else will do some of the play calling, because it seems like every time he goes somewhere and is the OC, he only ends up staying for a year. So we'll see on that one. And then Kelvin Sampson at DC as well. The one clip that's going viral is the Hard Knocks clip. Of him,
with the linebackers.
He's like, I'm trying so hard not to play a rookie over you guys, but he's doing so much better. Turns out that it's just because that rookie was that fucking good in Malcolm Rodriguez. So, I don't know. I genuinely don't know how I feel. I do have some faith, but I'm still reeling from losing probably the best coordinator duo
in the league
to hit the NFL and how long.
Yeah, that's very true. I first off, Pistons are keeping it close. They're now down by 6, and they were down by like 20 something earlier. So
Yeah, they were.
we'll keep tabs on that. I know that anyone listening to this already knows the results, so probably doesn't matter. But I I'm sort of in the same boat as Alex here, where it's a little bit difficult to decide on coordinators because it's very rare that you hire coordinators in the NFL are either former head coaches that are sort of trying to get back into the mix, right? The Nagys of the world, the Brian Floreses of the world, and then there's the career assistant that gets a boost, right? Or like an up and coming assistant that no one's ever heard of, i.e., he's either a head coach or anyone outside of the most insane fans probably haven't heard their name. So it's always a little bit tough to judge when our team does all of the latter, right? So Johnny Morton's a career assistant. He's been an O coordinator a couple of places, including USC, which is interesting. He spent a couple of years with USC, but the good thing I think that Morton brings is he's more established, he's more experienced, and has most recently found success with Bo Nix. Took a rookie and a honestly what should have been a pass game that was sort of not great and turned them
Yeah.
into a playoff team. I mean, that was a good winning season for Denver, and they took a step in the right direction. I think that's nice as well. Not only do you have experience and a pedigree, but you're sort of hot, so to speak. You're bringing momentum into this job. And Kelvin Shepard on the other side is a little bit more of a question mark to me because he's been coaching in the NFL for 4 years. That's it. All 4 are with the Lions. The last 3 are as as the linebackers coach, which is where that Hard Knocks clip is from. The dude feels like a leader. He feels like an MCDC guy, and obviously Brad Holmes and MCDC, signed off on all of these dudes. So hopefully they sort of fit the Campbell culture, and both of them have coached with the Lions before.
Absolutely.
But I'm hoping that Shepard can sort of get into the role quickly because it's one thing to get this new up-and-coming coach that seems to be very passionate, good at his job. Obviously, the linebackers were extremely successful despite being mauled by injuries. Taking him, raising him up with a rebuilding team and giving him some years to settle into the role. It's another thing when you're saying, like, all right, here's your first big boy job. Also, we're competing for a Super Bowl right now. That gets a little bit tougher. And so I think I'm sort of right with Alex here where I don't know. And that's sort of all the coordinators, right? Because you don't know these names.
I feel a little bit better about having a guy that's obviously been with the system for a while and has
Sure.
been with a winning system, and clearly has that Campbell like
Passion.
nose to the grindstone, like hard-o
Mm.
mentality. I do love seeing that. I mean, but also think about the guys that he's been able to coach here. I mean, you've got Thor, you've got Rodrigo. Like he's had a core, like one of the best linebacker cores when they're healthy in the league, and that is, I think a lot of that you can probably attribute to him. Again, like Rodriguez was what, like they say that he's what, like a 4th or 5th round pick.
I want to say he's 5th off the top of my head, but yeah, he's definitely not a high value guy
And
coming out of
it's
college.
one of those things they can develop. I do like the confidence of where it does show a bit of confidence in where the franchise is at systematically. Um, and it's even for me. I have a little. It's the perfect balance because you have a
Mm.
guy from the defensive side that even though the defense was kind of the thorn in the rose, or if that's even the phrase, um, or thorn in the side rather. Holy hell! But even if that was the case, it's a guy that understands the system and
Mm.
knows how they want to cultivate things rather than bringing in someone completely new. On the offensive side, you are bringing in someone completely new. Well, not completely new. He was our passing game coordinator in 22,
Mm.
but someone who's new to this era of the Lions offense. It's completely different from what it was 2, 3 years ago. And but at the same time, the offense isn't what really was what needed work. Like
Mm.
there's so much talent on the offensive side that I feel like you can put anyone with a mind for football in charge of that offense, and they're going to succeed. And at least if we know that the offense doesn't succeed next year, it's either due to injuries or this guy not knowing what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, that's a
There's
good point. Is
yeah,
there are question marks about Frank Ragnow? Will he retire? Will he come back? There are some question marks around the O line between him and Skipper. Skipper being a free agent, for those of you that don't know. And then you want to fill in that third line, assuming we're not going to get Tim Patrick back, or if we do, the chances we get that iteration of Tim Patrick at his age again are pretty low. So filling in that third receiver sort of slot. But outside of that, you're absolutely right. This is a stacked offense, extremely talented. And maybe now you learn just how good Ben Johnson was, right? Not only with what he does with the Bears, but now how quickly can Johnny Morton make it a top 5 offense again?
I
Maybe it
also think
is that hard. Maybe this
yeah,
was just Ben Johnson making these dudes look that good. I don't think that's what it is, but there's always that opportunity, that possibility.
yeah. I don't think it is. I think there's so much talent that has been drafted and developed by Brad Holmes and Campbell to where I think as much as Ben Johnson clearly is an incredible offensive mind, he was able to be an incredible offensive mind because of the talent on the field.
Mm.
And again, you could say that about most coaches in the NFL. Like, again, the coaches come up with the game plan, but it's up to the players to execute. But at the same time, I also think it'll be interesting to see a guy who probably coached in against Johnson in practice a ton in
Mm.
Calvin at that DC position. He's going to know at least a little bit about how Ben likes to run his offense going into those 2 games next season, which I've now
Same
completely
the other way
flipped.
around, right?
Absolutely, but I've also now completely flipped the script where I'm like, now I can't, I was so sad and so hurt. Now I just can't wait to kill the Bears next year. It's reinvigorated my hatred for the Chicago Bears, and I'm so incredibly excited for that.
As it
Uh,
should. And I want to point out real quickly, and this sounds now like I'm bashing Johnny Morton. I like the hire, as
John,
most of what
John, you
John
got to
John
distinct.
Morton. My bad. That's right. We gotta fit the narrative here where we're filling in. It's clear who we're talking about. What is the NFL these days with a certain threshold of talent, right? Like assuming that you should be there and you're a good player, it is so much about situation, right? Think about Baker Mayfield, what he's doing in Tampa versus even the Browns, but the Panthers. Same thing, another Panthers quarterback or former Panthers quarterback. Think about Sam Darnold. I know that there's sort of some recency bias with poor play at the end of the year, but think about what Sam Darnold did this season versus all those years with the Jets versus what he did with the Panthers. There is a thing in the NFL where it's just, do you fit? Are you actually good? And or do you fit that coach's system at that time? Baker Mayfield was this close to being seen as a generational bust. And now he's making millions and earning them, leading Tampa to the playoffs. It's about situations and do players fit schemes? All that to say, Jared Goff could be an MVP candidate. He may not fit the system as well with Morton. Same thing, other way around. Morton's system might not fit these players as well as we're used to. There may be a learning curve here.
Yeah, but I think the I'm not saying that this might not even be a good comparison, but I think you can make somewhat of a comparison of the Broncos in a way being, from a talent perspective and how they went about things, a bit of a Lions light in the sense
Meaning,
that the ball was very much spread. Although they
mm,
had their primary targets, the ball was very much spread around. You used the multiple running back system, which most teams are now. It's kind of old news. But this wasn't a one target, one offense. This wasn't led by one
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
And obviously, most great offenses aren't, but you definitely saw Bo Nix see as many targets as possible. And I only know that because I had Cortland Sutton in fantasy this year. As great as he was, I still wanted him to do a lot more. Um, but I think it'll be interesting. I don't. It
For
doesn't.
sure.
Neither of these hires has me freaked out. Neither of them scares me. Morton has coached under some. He's coached under Kiffin, coached under Harbaugh, coached under. I'm not going to count Sean Payton.
You don't
Um,
like Sean Payton? I don't either. I think he's POS, but
yeah,
he's a good coach.
Yeah, I'm not a big Sean Payton guy, but he coached under Gruden, he coached under a lot of different people.
Mm.
Um, and I do think obviously I mean we've talked about it before. Coaching trees definitely matter. Um, and I think we've got some external coaching. We've got an external coaching tree hire and an internal coaching tree hire. I think both should hopefully serve us well. Um,
You want to talk the shove real quick? So
no.
the Pistons are at halftime with the Pacers right now. They're down by 10. And I thought for a moment that I would have to come on here and say I'm watching the wheels fall off in Indiana. So it is nice to see a little bit of a, we'll say, fight from our guys right now. But the Pistons lost to head, yeah, right? A little fight. Sorry,
Yeah.
bad pun. Um,
Well, no, I thought that's what you were talking. I didn't even realize you were making a pun. I'm sorry. I thought but if we're gonna legitimately talk about, like, I guess we can kind of dive. It's so funny because you can tell that I think basketball players, and I think you could say a little bit with hockey in general as well.
mm,
I didn't even say actually no, I don't even think hockey's a good comparison, but the essence of like flopping or the I didn't do it and putting your hands up, like the camera zooms in on Isaiah Stewart launching himself at this guy, and then going off and saying, "Why? What did I? I didn't do anything."
I
Like refs don't have access to instant replay.
that's the craziest part is like you really thought you were gonna get away with that? Come on. I I now know, and this is going to sound crazy, I now know what Golden State fans felt like with Draymond. And no,
But
no, no, that's why it's going to make me sound crazy. That this is totally different levels. You're right. Draymond is a generationally dirty player. There were a lot of things that, if nothing else, Stu looks you in the eyes and hits you. I don't think that he's doing anything, big air quotes here, dirty in terms of like tripping someone, elbows to the groin, the like stepping on chests, stuff like that. Um, and we actually talked about this pre-show as well. I think that he's just got anger problems. I think that he's too much of a hothead. I think he has trouble with his emotional control. And I think that not only is that true, but I think, especially after things early in his career, standing over Blake Griffin, the whole escapade chasing LeBron around Little Caesars, obviously
I actually,
which is now very famous. Uh, I think that he sort of got branded as that too. And I'm not saying that that means the whistle goes against him more. I think that's a little bit true, right? Like refs know him as a player who's a hothead, so they're more likely to give him techs quicker. I think that's true to a certain extent. I more mean it where he's a hothead and other players know that. His opponents know that. So now Alex Deimel is guarding Isaiah Stewart down on the block and knows that if he talks a little bit more crap, if he just throws a little low key elbow, if he holds onto his jersey, tugs it a little bit trying to grab a rebound, he can get under Stu's skin quickly, right? Like Stu is not a guy that it takes a ton to get riled up. So now other players know, like, I can give him a little push in the back going for this rebound, and it might not even get called. If it does, it'll be a common foul. But guess what? Stu's probably going to turn around and shove me in the chest and get ejected. You know what I mean? I think that he is to a point now where he's branded as that type of player, so people know they can poke and prod him a little bit. Hopefully,
I'm trying to. Is there a way to find how many career techs a player has?
100%. Google, baby. That's
That's what I'm doing. I'm googling Isaiah Stewart technical fouls, and I'm getting
how many technical fouls has Isaiah Stewart in his career. I bet you, and that's
8.
actually interesting. Cade
Well,
got,
probably 9 now, counting tonight.
what'd
Yeah,
you say?
it's, he's tied for. Okay, wait. I think this might be 8. There's no way it's 8 this year.
Might be 8 this year. Technicals? Stu's probably
Yeah,
got 8 this
8
year.
this year.
Yeah.
Well, now probably 9, but 9 this year alone.
He didn't get a tech. He got a flagrant 2 and ejected. So no techs. Come on. Nothing crazy.
Oh, duh.
No, 8 techs in a
Oh,
season is
oh,
insane.
sorry. Let me see. There has only been one season in his career that he has not been ejected. And that was the 22-23 season.
Nice.
He's racked up 31 career techs
Oh,
and
jeez.
8 career flagrants.
That's what I'm saying. He's now like he's known as that dude
He
now.
already probably 4 now this year.
Is it 4 ejections now, or
Well,
4
it's
techs?
3 is what I'm looking at. I'm assuming they probably haven't counted the one from tonight yet.
Probably, maybe. Um, I think that you also run into trouble, and this is sort of why I brought the Draymond comparison up. Again, totally different levels. Draymond is historically bad. But the point being, Stu is incredibly important to what we do on the floor. He has remember a few shows ago we were making fun of Cat. We might have been doing it off the show, saying Cat has one of the worst, Karl Anthony Towns, one of the worst opponent field goal percentages allowed at the rim, i.e. he allows a bunch of free stuff at the rim. He's terrible protecting it. Stu leads the league in opponent field goal percentage at the rim. He's the best rim protector by percentage when people are shooting on the rim and he's guarding it. He's that good. He comes off the bench for us and is incredible. Brings a ton of energy, strong on the glass, good lob catch threat, has added sort of a nice little floater to his game, and is phenomenal defensively. And he can switch on the guards, whereas Duran is horrible in space defensively. We
Okay.
need him.
We cannot compare him to Draymond. Draymond, his lowest tech count
In a season?
since 2014 is 11 in techs.
Different games.
158 career technical fouls and 16 flagrants.
For those of you that are only listening and not watching, I'm putting one hand at the top of the screen and the other at the bottom. Not only is Draymond much better than Isaiah Stewart at basketball, but Draymond is way worse than Stu. Like I don't mean to make that comparison in terms of they're the same. I just mean to say like both of them suffer a little bit from being known as that guy. And both of them are valuable to what they do on what their team does on the court. So missing him is important. And I think he has to understand that. Hopefully that's part of him growing up as a player, is easing off a little bit from that. Because we need you. We do. At least right now, as the team is made up, you are very important to it. So I think he has to understand that a little bit as well. In terms of Pistons on the court, back-to-back losses coming into tonight. Lost at Orlando, which was sort of another chippy game, actually. It was very had a playoff feel to it. Not only because both of these teams are sort of middle of the pack in the East and may actually play come the playoffs, should they match up. They're both sort of 4 to 6 seed in the East right now. But also just because it was super chippy and very competitive. So it was a fun game as much as we did end up obviously losing. And Franz, by the way, was great in that game. Then we got our ass whooped in Cleveland. I have no analysis for that game other than their two big lineup murdered us because we had Tobias Harris guarding Jarrett Allen. And that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So we got bullied. They are a better team, period. They looked like the better team that night. That much is very true. And now we're in danger of dropping below 500. So that stinks. But ultimately, I'm still positive about this season. And Cade will most likely get in the next few days his all-star bid announced. So that's cool. I just struggle to talk too negatively for too long about the Pistons because I always want to be able to get on here and be positive about this season because we have 23 fucking wins. Like I can't remember exactly the number of our preseason win total over under, but we're basically at it already. We're not even at the All-Star break and we've hit our win total. So this has been a great year. We're struggling. We're coming back down to earth a little bit right now. Such is life. I do want to slide over to a place where we actually are winning on the court. It's not the court, it's the ice. Last week, had to sit here and talk about a 3-game losing streak. Now we get to sit here and talk about a 3-game winning streak for the Red Wings.
Yeah, I mean it's a good turnaround. It's going to take so much more.
That's the
It's going to
trouble,
take a
right?
lot more than what we've got right now. I do like seeing Marco Casper light up a little bit. Been waiting to see a little bit more out of him. Um, and it does make you confident a little bit more in the Young Bucks, even with Soderblom as well. Um, Obviously, against the Kings, you got Soderblom, Casper were the final three goals. Then against the Kings in the game before that, shut out a very talented Tampa Bay Lightning team, in which Casper had another goal. Um, it's 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 one of these, especially with Cam Talbot, who that was the one of the bigger signings this offseason at goaltender. He's a little up there in age, but he's either letting in six or shutting them out. So if we can get that down to this a little bit and a lot less of the wave, I think will be great. Um, and beating Montreal, who's had the Wings number all year until that game, won't see them again for the Wild. Now, again, it's one of those where you get on this high horse, you get on this winning streak.
Mm.
Then you have this schedule where you are going against Edmonton in Edmonton tomorrow. Tomorrow being Thursday. At Calgary Saturday. Um, Let me see here. Yeah, at Calgary Saturday, at Vancouver Sunday, at Seattle Tuesday, back at home against the Lightning, back at home against the Wild, then back at home against the Ducks. It's again, it's a never-ending thing. This is one of the toughest schedules in the NHL right now.
Mm.
So that's where wins are great, but it needs to continue. If we can keep this streak going, and I don't know, I'd say if we can get within at least a point or two of a wild card spot and stay at a point or within a point or two of a wild card spot going into the Four Nations face off and around early to mid February, I will feel much better because that we at least have some momentum going in, and as long as none of our guys, I know Larkin's in it, Raymond's in it. I'm gonna take a second to Google actually who else is playing. It might just be Larkin and Raymond, but keeping that momentum will be huge, especially in a East that is as dominant as it is always so shifty, where teams are constantly going like this, up and down the standings, because everything just seems to be in a constant shift. So we shall see. I do want to see because the amount of people playing in this tournament is going to make me really nervous. Because obviously those are games in which they could get hurt. Um, and it's taking them away from the team. As great as the Four Nations will be, um, hold on, I want to see here. Do 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 do. So nobody on Team Canada or Team Finland. You've got Raymond for Team Sweden, and then Team USA. You've got Larkin. And that is, yeah, so it's just Raymond and Larkin, both ways. Obviously, your two best forwards. So we shall see. Hopefully, Team US pulls it away in that one. Which that's if there's one sport that needed more international play on a
Mm.
pro best of best against best level, it's 100% hockey. Like the fact that like this took so long to bring in because you even had it's been 10 years since the Olympics was best on best. So
True.
it'll be nice to bring that back. And we had the IHF World Juniors, but again, those guys aren't even playing in the pros yet. Those are still prospects. So it'll be good to see something like that. But again, if we can, this is a very tough road schedule, especially coming up. You're probably not going to see this winning streak continue, unfortunately. But if you can win 2 of 3, 3 of 4 going into that tournament, you put yourself in a pretty good spot.
And that's the trouble is you've dug yourself such a deep hole that you almost need to win 3 of the next
Yes.
4. You just there's a lot of pressure on you right now because, I mean, before these 3 wins, I don't know what we're at right now, but we were 7 or 8 games back. I mean, it was pretty bad points back. Pardon me. It was not looking good, and it still isn't. Sadly, even after this, we're 9 points back right now. So not pretty. Long way to go. Good start to that road right now, though.
The
Uh,
Wings. Wings are 2 points back from a wild card.
Am I reading this wrong? Yes, I
What's
am.
that?
Yeah, we're two
Okay.
points back. I'm crazy.
2 points back from a wild card. We're about 3 points from a Eastern playoff spot, which is insane. Um, the two wild card spots are both in the Atlantic Division. Um, that being Boston and Tampa and Ottawa coming out of nowhere and taking that third spot. That just pisses me the fuck off. I can't stand Ottawa. I can't stand Brady Kachuk. I, Tim Stutz. A lot of them. I can't. I hate the fact that Ottawa is good right now because they've kind of in a way become a little bit of a bitter rival. You had the knock. You had the Matthew Joseph knocking out Dylan Larkin a year or two ago. I think that actually would have been last year. But suffice to say, that does really make me mad that they're back up there right now. So definitely going to need some change happening on that front soon.
As always, we got to make a quick shout out for Michigan women's basketball. They're down by 3 right now in the third quarter to Wisconsin. It's Olivia Olson's turn to go off. I know that we've mentioned Silas Swords a bunch to start this season, and lately, and she's great. She's got 14 and 5 right now. I mean, taking nothing away from her. But the last few weeks, it feels like we've always been calling Olivia Olson's name, who's another one of the freshmen for Michigan. She's 8 of 9 from the field right now, 16 points. Stellar start for her. They did, however, get their shit pushed in by Michigan State, which really sucks. At home, Michigan women's ball got murdered by 30 by Sparty. So that's unfortunate because we were looking at those games as sort of like measuring poles. How good are you against those like middle 20ing teams? So you played number 23 Minnesota, got a nice win. Then you play number 21 MSU, and I mean, it was bad. So nice slide over into women's basketball, and then men's ball starting to look a little bit better. I don't really know how to feel about that win over Penn State. We were without Vlad Golden, so he was sort of questionable going in with illness. I think he was on the court for like 5 minutes. I mean, there were points in the game where it would have been nice to have him, but we didn't. And so you go, okay, let's get a good game out of Danny Wolf. He looked terrible. He had, I think, 9 points off the top of my head. He was solid on the glass, but 9 points, and it was another sort of pedestrian effort from him in what is sadly sort of becoming a string of them, which is unfortunate. But a nice rebound after a Purdue win, or Purdue, loss, big loss, to get back in the win column against a team that, frankly, you probably needed to beat at home in Penn State. And it was Trey Donaldson, man. Ice Trey was huge down the stretch. I mean, Roddy Gale was like not great in this game again. Danny Wolf, not great in this game again. What did you need? Danny Wolf, by the way, had 11, not 9 points. But you got exactly what you needed, which was 21 points, 7 assists, 4 steals, and the game winner from Trey. And maybe the most important stat that you're going to see the game winner, I'm sure you've probably already by now seen the highlight of that step back three. It was huge. But what you're probably not going to see is the best stat on that score line, which is 0 turnovers from him. He didn't turn the ball over one single time, and the whole Michigan team combined for 9 turnovers. That's a season low. That's fantastic for a team who it feels like every week we get on here and reprimand over and over for being careless with the basketball. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's kind of sad that 9 is the bar we're going with right now, but still, it's good to see some improvements. I will say it's another one where it seems the tides keep shifting.
Mm.
This is a dangerous Michigan State basketball team, undefeated in conference play, currently in the top 10, in the top 20, or currently in the top
Yeah,
10
I
in the
think
nation. February 21st, that's going to be a duel. It's going to be a very tough match, and that's where
I hope
slowly,
it's a duel. I hope we don't get rocked.
yeah, and it's going to be tough. They're definitely going to have to again play their best basketball, and that one obviously Ohio State also dropping out. I know Ohio State was at least ranked at one point and
Yeah.
Wisconsin
Hmm.
coming back up. So this is a very competitive Big Ten this year. It's nice to be in the mix compared to the past season or two. But you've got Purdue, you've got Wisconsin, you've got Illinois and Oregon, who are all ranked. Michigan State being the only undefeated team in the conference at 18-2 and 9-0 in conference play. So we'll see. It's one of those where you can't really drop too much in the conference. You got to play your best basketball. You've got Rutgers on Saturday, and
Hmm.
then hosting 16 Oregon at home a week from today. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
And it's you said it right. What's the phrase that you used? Ebbing and flowing waves, going up and
Going
down.
for waves.
Yeah, this is a team that epitomizes that, right? Like we have seen them when they're playing their best, murder a ranked UCLA team on the road. We have seen them when they're at their worst, lose to a Minnesota team that they had no business being in a game with. But not only that, even within games, we see them looking like the best team in the Big Ten. And then in that same game, sometimes even in the same half, looking like they don't know how to pass the basketball back and forth one to another in an empty gym with no defenders. I mean, maybe I'm getting too critical here, but there are highs and lows with this team that make me both hopeful and worry a lot. Mostly worry um, because, like you said, we need to play our best basketball to beat a team like Michigan State. That's true of any team. Any team, when you play a number 7 squad in the country, you need to play your best ball. But when apparently the line seems to be so thin between our best and our worst, that becomes all the more important. So hopefully that we can get a little bit of momentum. And what I'd really like to see, I know that we're not going to see 9 turns every time. That's just the way of basketball. If we average 9 turns, we lead the country by a healthy margin.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see 2, 3, 4 games in a row where we're under 15, we're under 13, we're at like a healthy-ish number, right? Like we're somewhere 11 to 14, where that's not great, right? If we turn the ball over 14, 13 times a game, that's not great. But in Big Ten play, you can't turn it over 16, 17, 18 times like what we're seeing. So I love that we did it 9 times against Purdue, or only 9 times. I'd love to see against Rutgers, against Oregon, against Indiana, not to go above 15 again. I want to see us do it consistently and string it together. And really, that's, I think, true of this whole team and all of their play across the board. I'd love to see consistency. So
Absolutely.
hopefully we get that. And I know that the Tigers are looking for consistency out of a dude they just signed. This was really the first signing in a month or so, or at least the last few weeks that we've heard of
Yeah.
from the Tigers outside of that 1 year with
Just about a
Scoobs.
month, yeah, when they signed Glaber Torres. I know we didn't go into that too much. We'll obviously do more of a preview, but I do like seeing the pitching additions, especially with the bullpen who was either on or off.
Mm.
Obviously, you have your Foley, and it's still in a weird way. It's still a fairly young bullpen. I still think even he's not the youngest guy, obviously, but I still think Foley's got room to grow as a closer. I think Job. I don't even know if I see Job necessarily as a starter yet. I think he's
Mm.
going to mold into that reliever spot for a while. But Tommy Canley coming in 42 innings pitched, 2.11 ERA, 9.7 Ks per nine with a 190 batting average against. Was with the Yankees for a while. Was a key part of a bullpen that included stars like, I mean, you had Clay Holmes, um, you had Chapman for a minute. Like you had guys that were. This was a strong Yankees bullpen, but again, it's the Yankees. They're going to go out and get the best guys that they can every single year. Um, and I do like also the one. It's a 1 year, 7.75 mil. They're not trying to sign him into, a long term. I do like seeing these short term talent boosts while you're still in a weird way developing and seeing what the
Mm.
talent that you drafted and put through your farm can do. And that leads me to my second point. It seems as though everybody has been calling Alex Bregman's name. And the third base position is one that doesn't isn't necessarily going to be great. I think right now the favorite to fill that hole is probably Jace Young. if you look at what they did with Javier Baez, where they go out, they sign
Mm.
this guy to a 6 year, hundreds of $1 million deal, and look how he's produced. You then look at a guy who's been around since I think 2016, so he's 8 years into his career, all with one team. Now, to compare him to Javier Baez before everybody goes nuts is unfair. This guy has a bat. He has proven that he's had a bat. He's still 8 years into his career, hitting 20 plus homers, um, still doing what needs to be done from that perspective. But he's not going to want a short term deal. And he's going to lock up so much of your cap space to where part of me wonders if this is a team that was able to get hot and sneak into the playoffs and make the run that they made, is it worth going out and signing that guy right now? Or because if you're going to look at it long term, the Miggy money fucked everything up. As great as Miggy, I mean,
Yeah.
Miggy's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind. I think it's great to have guys with longevity, but if you look, I mean, the Lindor sign, like, look at, gosh, I don't know, Mike Trout. Like, these are guys you were locking them in for so long. As a team that does not like to spend money very frequently, it concerns me that there's an idea that this is going to happen. Now, you lock him into a 4 or 5 year deal somehow, some way. Great. And the difference with Javi is this guy was proving that he could do it. There wasn't a lot of, I guess, there were some issues that people had with Javi with the Mets where he was kind of acting like a jackass. He was kind of already on the decline. He was a bit of and they were questioning the bat. The swinging at balls in the dirt was happening way before he even got to the break. You look at a guy like Bregman who's got the consistent bat, can do well defensively, not as well as some other guys may fill that role, but he can at least bring something. Again, my fear is it locks you into something where you don't have the Mark Cannas who can come and produce a little bit, and then you can deal them out for another prospect at the deadline. I think targeting those guys right now is where the Tigers need to be as an organization, and that's what concerns me now. Knowing how they've been, they're not going to go out and spend that money anyways, and Bregman's either going to go to the Red Sox or stay with the Astros, or he's going to do something. I highly doubt he ends up coming to Detroit. I'm not saying I'd be unhappy if he did, but there would be a little bit of concern of, is this going to be, at the end of the day, worth the money? Are we going to go on these playoff runs? Are these playoff runs going to be consistent? Or is it going to be, we've signed, again, a guy that was a given all-star with one team, and we put all of our chips in one basket, and then we completely screw ourselves over.
And that's what we talked about right after the Tigers season, right? Is you're also in sort of a tough spot where you're not entirely sure what the team's timetable is.
You
Good,
completely flipped it
right?
by making playoffs this year. And again, everybody always, there isn't a GM that is going to come out and say that there's a middle ground because they're either rebuilding or they're going for the playoffs.
Yeah.
What they've got on the team. Even if that's not the case, that's what they're going to say. Come the trade deadline, it was clear this was not a playoff season for the Tigers. You can go back and watch me cry and bitch and moan about it. Then they go on this generational run, an absolute heater, sneak into a wild card spot, beat Bregman's Astros in that wild card spot, and then obviously lose to the Guardians. But now there's so many question marks in the air, and it's good question marks. I would rather have these question marks than know exactly what's going to happen. Where you don't have the tools that you need, and this is going to be another losing season, or at the very best, mediocre. But you go into this now, and you say, okay, are we elevating this, or are we going to push everything forward and go really, really win now and try to compete against these Dodgers and Yankees teams who are going out and getting every fucking player on the planet that has all-star even tied to their name, and dropping buckets of money that anyone else in the world wouldn't even be able to fathom. I mean, I keep seeing the pictures of Magic Johnson and the comparisons where he won a ring with MSU, and he's won like 2 with the Dodgers now, and he's won however many with the
5.
Lakers as an owner and as a player,
5
and then
as a
he's
player.
WNBA, and then it just pisses me off because it's now baseball is becoming one of those sports where you throw money in one direction, and if one team's got it, that's where everyone's going.
Yep. They're good problems to have. You're right, but it's a timetable discussion of. I think the line we used right after the season was, the Tigers could win fewer games than they did last year, could miss the playoffs, and would still have taken a could still have taken a step forward from last season, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
like that run, while cool, does not immediately mean that the whole roster that you have right now is consistently playoff level.
No, and not one bit. And I think it could get there, but this is also still a very young team at its core. You're still bringing in guys that you drafted 2, 3 years ago.
Mm.
You're still trying to figure out what the hell you're doing with your number one overall pick in the 22, whenever the fuck he was drafted, in Spencer Torkelson. You're still figuring this shit out. So it's there's so many question marks, but at least they're not all doubtful, which is great. Um, it's kind of you see this a little bit with the Pistons this year, where it was like I think everyone, you were kind of the one person that was like, okay, I don't think this is going to be a dog shit year. Now there's a few question marks there where it's okay. Does this speed up a timeline?
Yeah.
Are we going it? Are we going all in with what we've got, and then adding some all star pieces maybe this offseason? If they do or don't make the playoffs, who knows?
Yeah.
So it's good questions to have, I think, across the board. Um, Again, I would not expect a Bregman signing, but I do like the. I've never pronounced it. Did I say Canley? Tom
Canley.
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 Yeah, Canley. I do love it. It shores up your bullpen a little bit. Hopefully, it gets Kenta Maeda fired into the sun. um, Out. Or he just comes back and deals. I'll take
Yeah.
either
Hey.
one. It's not a repeat of what we saw where he was just giving up moon bombs. That was just terrible to watch. So it's good to see that. Trying to think if we have much else. I know there was something. I know Michigan football released something about fighting against Stallions, but maybe we want to save that for next week because it just did come out today, and I don't know if a ton of people have had time to read through it.
No, I haven't
It's
heard this at all. Actually,
fuck Stallions though.
you're not a Stallions guy now.
No, I'm not. It sounds like that's what the report was because
Ah.
they filed something with the NCAA, and I think that's what Michigan was saying is we don't align with him.
Gotcha.
Whatever. Not. There's something about Sharon Moore, and I was reading a response that an Ohio State guy did. I want to see if I can pull it up here. And obviously, as much as I hate the Buckeyes, it was unfortunately kind of a fair comparison here.
This is a side note, by the way, and it hopefully won't start a tangent because it's just a quick thought. People love Connor Stallions. Michigan fans love Connor Stallions.
Oh, I love him. I love him to death.
I don't get that. He forever tainted our program and all of the wins that came along with them. We went fucking undefeated and won a national championship, and because of him, there is a black mark on that program. Whether the wins are earned or not, that's a different argument. I think they are, obviously, because we were under the microscope that whole season. But because of him, you have an opportunity. You give the pieces of shit of the world, you give the OSU fans, the MSU fans, the football fans at large of the world, the opportunity to actually stand on solid ground when they say you didn't earn those wins.
I disagree because I think if you put that talent on that field,
So what if you have an argument against it? They can stand on solid ground and be perhaps factually right when they say you cheated to earn those wins.
I do want to rephrase. I'm not saying I love him and what he did. I think the cheating was obviously very dumb. I do agree with the argument that I think this is one of those where they didn't get caught, but everybody does it.
Oh,
I would absolutely take that route, and I don't really care if someone is going to try to hold the moral high ground. I mean, you're telling me college football coaching staffs are like 40 people full now, and you don't have someone doing that? Give me a fucking break. Everyone is doing it. At least the winning teams are. No matter how much talent you have on the field, everybody's
the
trying to
he
connect
did
the
it
head.
too argument. Come on, dude. Are we 6 years old? Teacher, he hit me first.
But here's the thing. I'm not saying that excuses what happened. I'm saying you can say. I'm not saying that excuses what happened. What I do, and again, I guess this doesn't really bode well for me because I'm doing this completely based off of what I've read about him, and watching the Netflix doc. The dedication and love for Michigan football that this guy has is, I think, something that everybody would want. He just clearly did not, I think, do it in, or at least push that in the right way, or at least show his love in the right way. Now, I think personally, him going to the national championship while under that microscope, even though not a ton of people really knew his face or he could kind of go unrecognized, that's a little selfish. That was stupid.
The whole media tour he did afterwards, I think, pretty
Yeah, I think
selfish.
that was dumb, and I think it was boastful. He's clearly not a football mind. I mean, he was what was the whole thing? He was a like interim DC for Mumford or something, and they got
Oh
blown
yeah,
out.
they got blown the hell out.
Clearly, that's what he had to contribute. Um, the guy lives and breathes football, but clearly in the worst way.
Yeah,
And I do. That's what I love that he lives and breathes football, and I love that we have people. And I don't think it's just him, but there are people on that Michigan staff that live and breathe and die by football. I
that's
think
the
that's what
thing.
probably was it
Jim
more is.
Harbaugh lives, breathes, and dies by football. Do you see him making manifestos and breaking
No.
every and like treating the NCAA violations law book like it's a checklist? I mean, come on. You can have one without the other.
So this was the guy who was kind of doing an analysis, and Sharon Moore, who deleted all of his texts with Connor Stallions when the news broke, says he did so not to erase any connection with him, but to erase the memory of him, because he was so upset that he cheated. And I quote, "I was just extremely angry of the type of person that would do this to our program and these kids. Try that with your wife. No, honey, I didn't delete my text with that girl because I was cheating. It's because I was so angry that she was. Here comes the like, I hate giving them. You're right. I hate giving them that ground.
No, that's really funny though.
Like, that's the dumbest art. Oh yeah, I was so mad, so I went back and deleted.
Went back and found these specific chats that I sent to him and deleted them.
Yeah, it's again. What sucks so much is it now, like you said, it does taint. And now I'm completely, I guess, contradicting what I said. I do passion for football. How much he sat there and studied the X's and O's. The There's part of the insane quality in me that loves the manifesto because it was just so crazy and so in depth insane that it does take someone with true dedication to do that.
You know
That
what?
part,
I think if he had done that for think of a program that we're both mum on, like we don't have any pros or cons, like
Coastal Carolina,
Coastal Carolina. If he had done that for Coastal Carolina,
you love him.
yeah, right, like
He is a college football sick guy.
right, yeah, it would just be a fun story.
It happens to be that he did this to us, and there are
Okay,
repercussions for
all
it.
right, word,
And
yeah, I
that's
get it.
where you say, like, this is an unreal story. This is an unreal guy.
It
It's
is, it
just
is. No, you're
he
right.
has involved with our school and our team at the exact same time. You can make the argument now that he cheated or not. I think this was a national championship caliber roster and team with or without Connor Stallions, and I think they proved that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But at the same time, like, and we've talked about this before, you can start splitting hairs of the like, all it takes is one recruit, one play to win a game sometimes, like to put you over the edge. And maybe that recruit got there because he saw the extra win that Stallions got them or the extra score that he got them here and there. I'm just saying there's a
Yeah,
pretty easy way to
that's,
art.
I think that's the one play or the like this is the one game that this guy saw and it's because it's the one play that Stallions called like
No, but I'm saying, like, let's say that he affects enough of the plays every few games to get you one win, 2 wins a season. That elevates the status of your program. And it was clear that it was a program building up, right? First, make it to the playoffs, get blown out. Then you make it to the playoffs, win a game, then lose. Or no, wait, we lost to, but like tight one with TCU. Then you make it and win, right? Like you inch your way over the top. maybe those few extra wins that got you the few extra programs or a few extra players to boost your program, it's pretty easy to argue that he had an effect on the roster that won that championship.
Absolutely, and I know you can make the argument that this is like me being a 6-year-old. I do think this is one of those where we happen to get like. Are you kidding? There is, even if it's not like actively stealing signs, there is an element of trying. Like every team
Yeah.
does their best to study and read a defense.
Yeah, you
And
you try to steal signs. It's the way that they went about it that is clearly word for word not
I think
allowed.
we need to do a series on like college scandals, and we can even start with Michigan here because we've obviously got Stallions. We've got the Chris Webber stuff with the Fab Five.
Mm.
Um, I'm sure there's like a million other things that I'm missing here, but college sports, as much as we love them, is a place of scandal.
It is actually I think you're exactly right, and right now is worse with NIL, and that's a whole other discussion for a different
But
time.
now it's making all those things that would have been scandalous. It throws them out the like. If you
They
want to
were
go
still
to
scandalous at the time. You
they
still
were scandalous.
knowingly broke the rule at the time.
Exactly, but now you go back if you're Chris Webber and you're like, okay, so now it's okay. Like, yes, you broke a rule. You should not have broken this rule, and it doesn't matter that it got changed now. You still messed that up. But it's interesting to think about the concept of how would this have gone, or how would these guys in that era, like Chris Webber was the number one recruit,
Yeah, yeah.
number one guy. Everyone wanted him. Hell, I think it was in the book, the Fab Five book that Mitch Albom wrote. Which, if you're a Michigan fan, you haven't read that book, stop what you're doing right now and order it. Incredible. Mitch Albom's obviously once in a lifetime journalist and author. But they talk about it. Tom Izzo he was, believe it or not, an assistant at the time that this was happening. Judd Heathcote was still the head coach. Finds out Weber's going to Michigan and wept.
Damn.
He was that good.
Mm.
So I'm not saying you can make the argument, but it is interesting to think about, absolutely.
It is. And let's say he's playing modern day. 7-figure deal. Easy. Just to play.
Even more, dude.
I don't know. The basketball numbers are still catching
And
up to the
just to call
football
a
ones.
timeout in the national championship when you don't have any. We just went on an absolute tangent there.
We did. And hopefully
Obviously,
all our
like,
Michigan fans are thrilled by that. Yeah,
I
weigh
do
in
think
one way or another. How do you feel
as-
on Connor
as
Stallions?
yes, and as we go through and we find out more, I'm sure there will be a reaction from Stallions or something, because as much as he has kept quiet, he's never really kept quiet. Because I do think he's one of those where if you're outside the state of Michigan, you're walking around, unless you're like a college football sycophant, you probably aren't going to recognize the dude.
Oh, 100. Yeah.
But at the same time, he's such a big story. So please
Who
let us
knows?
know as more things develop and come out. Let us know what you think of that. It'll be interesting to see what follows from that. So, do we have a Pistons score update?
That was my thing, was hopefully everyone that is watching this enjoyed, fingers crossed, a Pistons win, because we're only down by 6, start of the fourth quarter right now. So who knows? There will be heavy Paul Reed minutes the rest of the game because, oh, shit. Malik Beasley just got denied at the rim. This is getting very chippy, by the way, if you haven't been watching the game. I think 2 other technical fouls have been called, one on Cade and one on Thomas Bryant again. So, interesting. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the end of this game and this whole episode. If you're new, thank you for joining us. Drop that follow if you're returning. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Drop a follow, hit subscribe, easiest way to support the channel. It's been Pure Michigan Sports.